I'm William Zule. I'm a researcher at RTI International in the United States. I have been interested in the effects of dead space in needles and syringes on the potential for HIV and hepatitis C transmission among people who inject drugs for about 25 years now. I've been conducting research on this. All syringes retain some fluid when the plunger is fully depressed, okay, and we've labeled that dead space. And insulin syringes with permanently attached needles, when the plunger is fully depressed, they only retain fluid in the needle itself. This is because the needle goes through the tip of the syringe all the way to the base of the syringe barrel. Syringes with detachable needles have, when the plunger is fully depressed, retain fluid in the tip of the syringe, the hub of the needle, and the needle itself. And we measured this, and we found that the insulin syringes with permanently attached needles retained about 3 microliters of fluid with the plunger depressed, and the standard syringes retained about 100 microliters of fluid. HIV and hepatitis C infection are related to the amount of virus in an exposure. And laboratory experiments have found that HIV and hepatitis C survive much longer in standard syringes with detachable needles than in the insulin syringes with the permanently attached needles. Other laboratory tests have shown that in simulated injection and rinsing, that the standard syringes retained about 1 microliter of blood, and the insulin syringes with the permanently attached needles retain less than 0.001 microliter of blood. And insulin syringes with detachable, with the permanently attached needles, because they retain less blood, we believe are much less likely to transmit HIV or hepatitis C, whereas syringes with detachable needles that retain more blood are much more likely to transmit it because they retain more virus, and the virus survives longer in them. In biobehavioral surveys that ask people about a history of sharing the standard syringes and a history of sharing the insulin syringes, and also tested people for HIV and HCV, we found that a history of sharing the syringes with the detachable needles was associated with increased odds of testing positive for HIV or for hepatitis C, whereas a history of sharing only the insulin syringes but never sharing a standard syringe was not associated with any increased risk of testing positive for HIV and hepatitis C. Insulin syringes are great, but they won't work for everybody because they are all small and they have a permanently attached needle, and some people need larger syringes and they prefer syringes with needles they can take off. So recently there have been attempts to develop some low dead space alternatives and one of these is a syringe that has an elongated plunger that extends into the tip of the syringe. This eliminates the dead space in the syringe. Okay. The other alternative is a low dead space needle. It has a spike that goes into the tip of the syringe. These low dead space needles eliminate the dead space in the tip of the syringe and the hub of the needle. And then so far the ones that we've tested and things reduce dead space by about 50 or 60%. So there's still quite a bit of fluid retained in these with the plunger depressed. They're a step in the right direction, but they're still not good enough, I don't think. I think I would encourage people whenever possible to continue to use the low dead space insulin syringes. I would advise them if they can, depending on what they're injecting, that they should use the low dead space insulin syringes with the permanently attached needles in any case they can, because they're going to retain less blood, they're going to waste less of their drug, and also they have small needles that do less damage to their veins. And I would also encourage them to, whatever they're using, if they can't use an insulin syringe, it would be helpful if they would use one of these new low dead space alternatives. And I would also encourage them to rinse their syringes with water as much as possible.